Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm going to be taking you through my picks for the best new cards, the best new budget buys, the best cards underneath $1 from this year, not reprints, the best new cards that you should be considering picking up right now. So make sure you check out that card list, link in the description below, and let's jump into it. So, Canker Bloom, an incredibly good new card. My goodness, if you showed this to someone like 20 years ago, they'd be like, a 3-2 for 2 mana? And then you'd be like, it does all these other things too. So yeah, 3-2 Phyrexian Fungus for 1 and a green. Pay 1, sacrifice it, choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate. The lowest cost version right now is just 14 cents, which apparently is this one with this art. And yeah, just 14 cents for this fantastically flexible creature. Again, a 3-2 for 2. That's already good stats right there. If you're an aggressive creature deck, great, cool. Get this down, low to the ground early, and start swinging away. Of course, you might have other ways to pump and that kind of stuff too, but the main thing that is important with this one is, again, its flexibility. If you need to take out a pesky artifact, cool, do that. Pesky enchantment, yep, do that as well. And if neither of which you need to take out, but you need to proliferate, do that. Again, if you're playing in a poison deck, get more counters on your opponents. You're playing in a planeswalker deck, get more counters on your planeswalkers. You're playing in a ++1 build, more counters on your creatures. -1/-1, your opponent's creatures. This card is flexible. This card is fantastic. It's only 14 cents. Yeah, there's a lot of kinds of decks out there that can definitely consider this one. Moving on, Infectious Inquiry. This one's an interesting one. Sorcery for 2 and a black. You draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. So that's about the rate that you're going to get with an additional effect. Again, 3 mana for 2 cards, 2 life in black. And the additional effect this time is each opponent gets a poison counter. Now, I should say that you're probably going to consider this one if you have a decent amount of proliferate in your deck, but like I just said, there's a lot of decks out there, you know, Planeswalker, you know, Super Friends decks, whatever they're called, ++1 builds, -1/-1 builds, yeah, I mean, loyalty counters on Planeswalkers. There's a lot of things that you can get a lot of counters on with proliferating, and now, just having an extra, yeah, instead of using this instead of a different draw, you have an extra avenue to victory. You just got to get 1 poison counter on each opponent to start, then your proliferating can do the rest. And on top of that, I mean, make sure you're considering as well the impact that your opponents can have with this as well. By starting off that poison train on your opponents, if they're going to start proliferating as well, maybe you're playing against, again, a Super Friends deck, a +1 counters build. There's a lot of decks out there. There's a lot of fantastic proliferated cards. I mean, this year we've gotten an absurd amount of proliferate cards and proliferate effects. Your opponents can help out as well against each other, essentially. So that's definitely an avenue that can be used. Again, only 17 cents for this card. Next up, Reckless Handling. This one is fantastic. Just 19 cents. 19 cents for a fantastic 2-mana tutor. 1 in a red sorcery. Search your life for an artifact card, reveal it in your hand, shuffle, then discard a card at random. If an artifact card was discarded this way, Reckless Handling deals 2 damage to each opponent. So this is kind of like a gamble, but basically 1 mana more in specific for artifacts. Now that being said, if your deck is built around specific artifacts, you have a ton of artifacts in your deck, a 2-mana tutor is fantastic. And like Gamble, yeah, there's a chance you might lose on the card that you got. That being said, if you lose out on that card, or if you lose out on another artifact, you are at least getting something out of this. You are dealing damage to your opponents. Regardless, yeah, a 2-mana tutor, most of the time it's going to get you the card that you want and keep that in your hand. There you go. Again, a great way to go get, you know, a specific artifact that your deck might really, really want. Maybe you've got ways to recur that anyways, get it back to your hand out of your graveyard. A really, really good card again for just 19 cents. You just don't see that for 2-mana tutors. Moving on, Corrupted Conviction. Yeah, Village Rites is a very good card. This is basically just Village Rites, right? 20 cents for this version, though. Instant for a black. As this cost, cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. Incredible, fantastic again. Aristocrat style strategies that care about, you know, sacrificing creatures, getting them back potentially, ETBs, death triggers, drawing cards. What's not to love about that? Again, 2 cards for 1 mana, pretty absurd. And again, any other value you might get out of, you know, your death triggers or whatnot in your Aristocrat style strategy, it's going to be fantastic. Village Rites sees a ton of play. This is going to as well. And yeah, it's very, very budget friendly now, just 20 cents currently. Moving on. Invasion of Zendikar. I'm glad to see this one still very budget friendly, just 27 cents. This is a fantastic battle. Probably going to be one of the most used battles out there. Basically an explosive vegetation on a battle. 3 and a green, battle siege, ETBs, get 2 basics from your library into play tapped. But on top of that, again, Wizard just keeps, you know, one-upping Explosive Vegetation. Eddie's like, wizards must hate Explosive Vegetation. Yeah, that is definitely very, very true, apparently, because they keep making better versions of it. Once you take off those defense counters, this is going to flip over to Awakened Skyclave. 4/4 Vigilant Hasty Elemental. Basically, it's also a land. Tap for 1 mana of any color, so it's also a mana dork / land. It's kind of like a Dryad Arbor, I guess I would say, essentially. But yeah, essentially, again, for 4 mana, you are ramping 3. Well, 2, and then a potential 3rd if you can take that out. Or again, if you can convince an opponent to take it out. So a very good card, one that is definitely going to see a lot of play. I mean, it's like Migration Path, potentially even plus in many circumstances. For just 27 cents, a great ramp card to consider. Next up, if you're mean, just kidding. If you have a Hate Bear deck and maybe your group's okay with a Hate Bear deck, yeah, Phyrexian Censor can definitely be a good one, and it's especially good if you've got a Phyrexian deck. And a Phyrexian Hate Bear deck is the scariest thing of all time, I think. A 3/3 Phyrexian Wizard for 2 and a white. Each player can't cast more than 1 non-Phyrexian spell each turn. Non-Phyrexian creatures enter the battlefield tapped. So again, if you've got a Hate Bear strategy, great, just another thing to put in there, kind of like a rule of law type effect again. Most of your opponents are not just going to have a lot of Phyrexian spells. And again, if you are in Phyrexian Tribal, this is just, hey, let's slow things down. So whether you're playing Phyrexian Tribal, whether you're playing Hate Bears, if you just want to slow players down, if you've got, more of like a high, big bombs deck essentially with, just a lot of, high mana cards, and your opponents are going to play, a lot of, spell slinging type of cards, you can slow them down quite a bit. So again, just 30 cents, a good card. Next up, this one is incredibly impactful. Just 32 cents for this new card. Nahiri's Resolve, an enchantment for 3 red, white. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have haste. That's already nice. Again, a great hasty effect, kind of like Fervor or something like that, essentially, where you can just say, hey, I'm just going to swing with my creatures right away. Hammer, Perforus, those types of cards. That's great. And again, you're going to be aggressive. Get an additional, power. That's nice. Not 5 mana nice, but you are getting additional value that is incredible. Beginning of your end step, exile any number of non-token artifacts and or creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under those control at the beginning of your next upkeep. So first of all, this can help out in a couple of different ways. Number 1, again, ETBs, LTBs, you can really take advantage of something like this. Now, you might not want to get rid of all your creatures because you might just be leaving yourself wide open. That being said, it's also a great way to kind of protect your creatures from a potential board wipe. Again, at your end step is when you exile creatures. They're going to be coming back on your next upkeep, or I should say creatures and artifacts. So if in between then your opponents might be trying to wipe the board because things are pretty crazy, they're going to get rid of everything except for your things. Or if you've got something like a route that, is instant speed potentially, you can wipe out your opponent's boards while keeping your creatures and artifacts safe. So again, this has a lot of potential. And at the very least, just if you got a couple of ETB creatures that you want to take advantage of, yeah, do that. Do that. Leave other creatures in play for defense. Blink those creatures, essentially. It's a very flexible card that can help you out in a lot of circumstances. Yeah, I can definitely see this one being pretty popular, moving on. And yeah, just 32 cents right now. Definitely a good deal. Next up, one last proliferate card, at least I believe it's one last proliferate card that I'm going to bring up. Unnatural Restoration. Sorcery for 1 and a green. Return target permanent card from your grave to your hand. Proliferate. Now, Regrowth, this is not, because Regrowth lets you get back anything back from your graveyard. So, instant sorcery does not matter. This is specific to permanents. Now, if you're playing in a permanent heavy deck, again, creatures, lands, planeswalkers, battles even now, any of those things, or actually enchantments, artifacts too, any of those things, you can get them back for your hand. And on top of that, again, getting that benefit of proliferating. So if you are running, again, a counters build, a planeswalker build, a -1/-1 counter build, a poison build, all those things can be great with this kind of a card. So again, if you need a regrowth type effect, and you're running one of those kinds of builds, definitely consider this one for just 33 cents. Next up, Wren's Resolve, a good impulse draw card that definitely can provide a good amount of value, especially for a mono red deck or maybe a deck that doesn't have a good amount of card draw opportunities. Sorcery for 1 and a red, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. So impulse draw 2 in the good kind of impulse draw where it's like, yeah, not just at your end step, this is at the end of your next turn. Until the end of your next turn, you get to play those cards. So again, if you use the mana on this turn, you can just wait until your next turn to utilize those cards. And again, it is play, so you can put down lands as well from there. So yeah, 2 for 2. That is an unheard of amount. I mean, again, this is impulse draw, so it's temporary card advantage technically, but still, there are also ways to even get even more advantage out of that, like, like a deck that actually cares what you cast things from exile. There's plenty of them out there. Prosper, anyone? So yeah, definitely a card to consider for a deck, especially one like that. But yeah, again, just a good amount of temporary card advantage for a low amount of mana. Moving on, Open the Way. This one's an interesting one. Sorcery for X green. X can't be greater than the number of players in the game. Real cards to the top of your library to X land cards. Put those cards on the battlefield, tab the rest of them on your library in random order. Now, this one again, Explosive Vegetation. Just Wizards apparently hates it, right? Because this is yet another card that is just pretty much better than Explosive Vegetation. So basically, again, your options of this in a commander game, in a typical commander game with 4 players, is going to be what? X equals 4. Again, it says X can't be greater than the number of players in the game. Keep in mind, it's not opponents, it is players. So if X is 4, that's 6 mana in total, and you are guaranteed to hit 4 lands. So 4 lands for 6 mana, that is a really, really, really good rate. I mean, even just at 3, even just at 2 for the X, that's still a good amount of value. Again, I mean, later in the game, you're probably not even going to be like, yeah, I really care about putting a bunch of mana in this X anyways. If it's just a one-on-one situation, ramping probably isn't your, main focus. I mean, unless you're playing a landfall deck, still, you can still put 2 into that X. It can still just, at the very least, be an Explosive Vegetation. Now, the lands that you are getting are probably random. Again, it's off the top of your library, so it's not like you are fixing your mana as much. But again, if you're in a deck that has, say, some really good non-basic lands, they can be an even better hit. Again, you might hit Command Tower. You might hit, Urborg. If you're playing Urborg, you might hit Gaea's Cradle if you've got infinite money. There you go. You might hit those. Yeah, you can definitely hit other cards outside of those basics. Again, are there going to be times where this is worse than Explosive Vegetation? Sure, because you might be like, I really need to hit a mountain or something to tap for red, and I didn't hit it. That being said, if you're playing, I believe probably less colors, this is probably even better. So yeah, you can make sure you can hit the lands that you want to hit. So yeah, a great card, and yeah, one that is currently just 58 cents. Next up, Filter Out, and apparently this is the least expensive version of it. An instant for 1 blue, return all non-creature, non-land permanents in owner's hands. A really good surprise, just, hey, 3 mana, instant speed, let's bounce a lot of important things. Again, non-creature, non-land. So we are getting rid of artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, battles. All of those things are going away. Again, surprise, surprise, just our opponents think they might have, a good upper hand on us, especially, if we're playing against like an enchantress deck, an artifact deck. Keep in mind, this is not, say, like non-token or like, non-token essentially. So like you're still bouncing like treasures as well. You're bouncing away, which are just going to be wasted then at that point. So it's a good way to force the issue on that too. So that's a good way to say, hey, 3 mana, yeah, bounce a lot of things that might not be all that important to you. Again, maybe you're not playing, an Enchantress build or Artifact heavy build or a Planeswalker build. Maybe you're playing a heavy creature build. This is like, hey, yeah, you know what? My things are fine. Yeah, your creatures are fine, but everything else is not. So yeah, a really good way to take advantage of that. Or speaking of take advantage of, maybe if you're playing an Enchantress build, maybe you actually want to bounce enchantments back to your hand so you can then recast them to, draw more cards, get more effects. So keep that in mind as well. It's a really good, solid card. Again, 3 mana instant speed. Board wipe that can be kind of one-sided. Yeah, that's really, really good to consider. And then finally, I brought this card up in quite a few episodes recently. Hexplate Wallbreaker is a really, really good card. Equipment for 3 red. It says 4 Mirrodin, so again, when it enters the battlefield, you get a 2/2 Rebel. This is attached to. That equipped creature gets +2/+2, so already it's a 4/4. Most importantly, though, whenever equipped creature attacks, if it's first combat phase of the turn, untap each attack creature of the phase, additional combat phase. Basically, hey, you get an extra combat. So, yeah, that's quite a good thing in Magic. There are many decks out there that really care about getting extra combats. First of all, you're going to be dishing out more damage. Secondly, you get any combat damage triggers. Thirdly, I guess I should say, you get any attack triggers as well. There are very few extra combat cards that are now budget friendly. Ever since like Ishin came out, things got crazy, and even a card like Relentless Assault, is the one I'm thinking of? Relentless Assault? Whichever the just standard 4 mana take an extra combat spell is, that is even now like $3. So this one being budget friendly, at least for the time being, its price has been creeping up, is still surprising that it is less than $1 right now. If you're looking for an extra combat synergy and you're looking for it to be budget, make sure you pick this one up. But yeah, that's my current list for the budget cards, the new budget cards that you should be considering buying. Again, less than $1, some fantastic pickups in there. So if you are interested in any of those cards, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. Comment below with your thoughts on my picks for these cards. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.